Wealth, more often than not, is a result of people's savings. It just seems wrong to take that away from them.
I would say I've got a very good standard of living, but I'm still very happy to help those less fortunate.
Yeah. Like the tax on, there's going to be a tax on £80,000 and more, which is for London, with how high rent is at the moment. I think it's that's not livable, but it's not a lot of money.
Despite Labour's general reticence to promise anything in particular for their plans in government, there is one thing they are clear on. There will be no new tax on wealth. This is despite research suggesting that a wealth tax on just the richest 0.3% of the population could generate £10 billion for the public purse. While a wealth tax would affect very few Brits, the people it would are likely to be living here, in Kensington, the richest parliamentary constituency in the country. Kensington is a pretty complicated place. Some people here are loaded. There's the most expensive street in the country, Phillimore Gardens, where the average house costs £23.8 million. But among the 6th-floor townhouses and supercars, there is serious deprivation. Research shows that from 2019 to 2020, 1 in 4 children in Kensington and Chelsea were living in poverty. And Grenfell Tower serves as a brutal reminder of the area's inequality. This is Extreme Britain, and that's why I'm in Kensington to ask the people I meet, how do you feel about the level of tax that you pay at the moment?
It hurts, but I can afford it.
Being a bit of a communist, I guess. Sorry, I'm not. But, I do believe everyone should pay tax.
How would you feel about a tax on wealth rather than income?
Wealth, more often than not, is a result of people's savings and their hope to exist on their savings. It just seems wrong to take that away from them.
Well, for example, the tax on, there's going to be a tax on £80,000 and more, which is for London, with how high rent is at the moment. I think it's that's not livable, but it's not a lot of money, and to tax that proportion as well is unfair. I think they should start with all the ultra rich first, and then just go down from there.
Yeah, it's quite high considering the amenities don't really represent what I'm paying in tax. I wish that with the amount of tax that I'm paying, I'm not really seeing it being put into what I would expect to get back from it.
Is that in terms of public services and stuff?
Yeah, public services. There's good transport systems in London, but that's about as far as it goes. I think the public services are actually quite expensive for the amount of tax that we are paying. I think to try and go to Manchester could cost £60, which I think is insane. Back home in Ireland, that's €5 to get from 3-hour train journey. Yeah.
Would you describe yourself as wealthy?
Pardon?
Would you describe yourself as wealthy?
Oh, no. No.
I have 2 homes. Yeah, I would say I've got a very good standard of living, but I'm still very happy to help those less fortunate. Yeah. You see people on the street, it's dreadful to see. And what do they do? What does the government do? They encourage migrants to come in, give them free accommodation. Why don't they look after their own people, the old age pensioners, who can hardly afford to live?
Is there a world in which the government can do both those things?
Can they what, sorry?
Is there a world in which the government can do both those things, look after British people and people fleeing war?
You know what I say about the government? They look after number one.
What is wealthy in your eyes?
I suppose somebody who is worth at least £500,000, £600,000.
Tax on wealth. I think insane wealth is ridiculous. Someone who has over £1 billion, that's just that's why would you need that amount of money? I think if you've worked hard, then I think there should be inheritance tax could be, if you have ridiculously sized houses, but I think it's all proportionate in a sense. Yeah. So I don't know. I think insane wealth should be taxed more, but there's always that old analogy of the guy buying 10 pints for everyone else. So they're just going to go to another country perhaps. There's so much offshore tax nowadays that you never know where it's going to go anyway.
As somebody that's not well off, I think the wealthy should pay their fair share, but it's getting the balance right. If you ask for too much, they'll just take they just go elsewhere. You know, they've got the money to go and live in wherever, and when they move, they'll take those, you know, their money with them and their taxes with them, and we'll end up worse off. So it's getting that balance right, I think.
If we tax like the top 1%, it would like trickle down to everyone else in a more suitable way. I don't think like the bottom percentage of people should be taxed.
Income, you choose to work. You work hard, you pay tax. And tax on income in this country, I think, is reasonably fair.
I think the argument against that is people on lower earnings pay proportionally more tax than someone on a very high income with very high wealth.
I'm afraid the use of the term proportionately can be very misleading. It's proportionate to what? However, people who are on low incomes, they have to be on very low income where they get considerable benefits. And people on low incomes don't pay tax. I think my understanding is that you can earn £14,000-15,000 without paying tax, I think. And then thereafter, it is a modest amount on the excess of that. So I don't think people on low incomes have a great deal to complain about.
I'm not happy.
Why aren't you happy?
Because, how will I put it, they keep taking from me, giving to the wealthier people, and it's not fair. I have a family I need to feed, and the more work I do, the more tax I get to pay, and cost of living is going up. Pay rise doesn't really affect private sector that much, except you're working in the government sector and I work in the private sector. So how many penny they put in the pay rise does not really help me. So the tax I'm paying is really taking more out of my pocket.
And then how do you feel about the kind of the public services that you're getting in exchange for your tax at the moment?
I'm not really happy. Again, I will say I'm not really happy because the waiting line in NHS is something to behold. My daughter is supposed to be seen by specialists, and they're telling me it's going to take about 2 years.
Really?
For a review. She's to be reviewed by for autism and others, but she's not even on the list yet. To start with, she's not even on the list, and it's going to take up to 2 years for her to probably get on the list. Because I don't know how long it's going to take for her to be seen, and she's 7. So, I'm not expecting her to be seen until she's probably 10, and it's affecting her education. The help she needs for education, I can't afford it from my pocket.
What would you like to see? Say there was a wealth tax introduced. What would you like to see kind of that money spent on if there was greater spending power for the government, say?
Well, looking after those in need. And I'm just thinking as well, like people do spend their money. Oh, I'm going to sound awful here. Sorry. Maybe we should tax frivolous things that people don't really need, and have the basics that keep people alive and healthy.
What are those frivolous things?
Well, like the newest TV or something, and I know people love their TV and it's a really good source of entertainment. I'm, turning in corners here, aren't I? But just, or maybe like new. I mean, I know there's a trend at the moment to reuse everything. I mean, look at me. I'm not exactly the height of fashion. Okay, and make do with things so that maybe like new things like designer labels. I know designer clothes. I know they're expensive anyway. But maybe there should be a heavier tax on that, and then maybe less tax on fruit and vegetables to keep everyone healthy.
Do you think the government understands what life is like for people like you?
No, they're out of touch. Absolutely out of touch. Because if they are not out of touch, a prime minister who is from an immigrant background would say we'll tax the immigrant nation to be able to fund the NHS. That doesn't make any sense because these people are struggling to feed, to survive, and these are the same people you want to tax to fund the NHS. Meanwhile, the rich keep getting richer. If it is not for the whole crisis that happened, we got to know about his wife's tax status. That would have been swept under the rug. The same thing for him. It would have been swept under the rug. So they keep getting richer. They keep giving themselves the contract to feed their pocket, and then they tax us. So no,